Hello, everybody. Welcome back. Welcome to another Roma Press live stream. I will be once again your host. Thank you for joining me here as we wait for more people to join this live stream. I would always urge everybody that is already here to click the like button. That helps get some more visibility. So if you haven't already, please click the like button. Hi, Brian. Thank you for joining me today. As I thought it would be nice to come together. Hello, Johnny. Hi, how are you? I thought it would be nice today to come together here as Roma prepare to face Milan in a really important match, the return leg of the Europa League quarterfinals. I thought it would also be interesting to sort of come together and reflect on what the hell happened on Sunday against Udinese, as obviously the match was abandoned under extreme circumstances. Hi, Gisberto. Thank you so much for joining me today once again, Gisberto. I hope you're well too. I hope everybody is well here because I thought the health scare that concerned Evan Dika on Sunday was a real deal breaker in my eyes. I don't know about you, but it was scary. It was definitely scary for the players, for De Rossi as well, and all in all, the decision to call that game off was 100% right. Johnny, hope my wife won't give birth tomorrow. Well, congratulations, man. If it happens, so be it. You can always rewatch the match afterwards. Okay, so it's definitely happened before. I think even John on the latest child. So on the fifth child, John had to be in the hospital. It was the night that Roma beat Feyenoord on penalties. John was in the hospital. His daughter was being born, and I had to take care of things over here. But he had to miss the game, so he missed a hell of a game. But obviously, those are the moments that are worth something, you know. So, hi, Nico. Thank you so much for joining me. Let's get together as we've talked about in the DMs. So thank you for joining, Nico, and thank you for the invitation. Um, yes, absolutely, Forza Indica. Uh, Thank you so much, guys, for the support. And if you haven't already subscribed to the channel, you can do so right now. If you like what we do at Roma Press, you can also chip in by going to patreon.com/Roma Press, and that helps us a lot. It really helps us going. It's just John and me, and that's the whole team basically. So it really helps. The support means a lot, and you can get a lot of cool benefits from early access to podcast episodes to extra episodes to also some cool merchandise. So patreon.com/Roma Press, and we appreciate greatly all the help we can get. So we can get right into the match against Milan. I think that will be the the priority on everybody's minds. But I also wanted to go back to the Udinese game, and we can also track it through what Daniele De Rossi said in his pre-match press conference, along with Lorenzo Pellegrini. Both of them spoke ahead of tomorrow night's game. So obviously, Roma will be looking to hold on to this 1-0 lead, which is quite a remarkable achievement in hindsight. When we look back at that game, what Roma were able to make of it and how they were able to contain Milan was nothing short of amazing, given the expectations, given the history, our track record at the San Siro over the last few years. That result was far from guaranteed, and here we are. We are in a position where we can take advantage of it, and we can take advantage of that. We can take advantage of a packed Stadio Olimpico. There's going to be over 66,000 people in attendance. This will be the 53rd sold out stadium for since the Friedkins took over. Um, there will be over 4,000 Milan supporters, and I think the latest numbers was Roma will earn something along the lines of 4.5 million from at the box office. It'll be a pretty remarkable night for everybody involved. So the spotlight is on. Roma will be called into action, not only because they have that 1-0 advantage, more specifically, they will be called into action, and there will be more expectations for tomorrow because of Roma's track record in the Europa League and in the Conference League over the last few years. Whenever they were in this position to deliver a result home, to impress the home crowd, they did just that. And so that's something. That's why the tide has shifted, and now the questions in the press conference leading up to this game were completely different than the questions that preceded the first leg at San Siro. The questions that preceded the game at San Siro was, well, will Roma look to lock themselves up and try not to concede at all costs? Will they take risks? Are they aware of what went on the previous years against Milan in that stadium? There was almost this sense of clear-cut inferiority, which I do not think is there anymore because of how Roma managed to turn this situation in their favor. Anything can happen, obviously, tomorrow. We can expect Milan to deploy a different lineup. I do not think that Stefano Pioli, a manager who I'm notoriously not a fan of. So exactly, with Pioli, we never know what he will do. Absolutely, Nico. I'm not a fan of his. I do not think he is very flexible. He's not been flexible with the kind of roster that he's had at his disposal over this season. He's failed time and time again to put Milan in a position to succeed. I think his foolish determination to have somebody like Ruben Loftus-Cheek play as a trequartista rather than a mezzala is one of the many war crimes that Stefano Pioli has committed over the last few years. But obviously, Milan have the quality to take this game. Milan have the quality. Milan have won at the Olimpico. This is not some kind of voodoo ground for them. This is not a place where they go in and they suffer. The only thing that prevents us from thinking this way is Roma have now a reputation in Europe. Whether you like it or not, Roma have a reputation. You can question to what extent this reputation is valid, whether it's Conference League counts for what, Europa League counts for what, but still they've been here, they've done it. So I just wanted to go through some comments. Gisberto, any comments from De Rossi or Pellegrini that stood out to you, or was it just another regular press conference? Well, first and foremost, Daniele De Rossi saying Evan Dika is fine, and that's the most important thing. So thank goodness for that, that it's okay. There's nothing related to the possibility of a heart attack. So that's a huge, huge plus. Perhaps De Rossi's insistence on the fact that he doesn't expect Milan to change too much. And also the fact that he said, I do not want us to overthink our game plan. Just because we're playing at home, I don't want us to change too many things compared to the first leg in Milan. Now, I don't know. I don't know if I agree with it, and it could be something that he says, in his press conference as a way to sort of take the spotlight away, to not have too many speculations as to what Roma will do exactly. But I do not think you go into this game with the same kind of attitude that you had going up against Milan at San Siro. There, you knew exactly the dangers. You knew exactly the risk that you're running. And Roma adapted very well to that situation. And the match that we saw was a match where Roma were able to contain Milan and also make the best of the chances that they had at their disposal. One could even go and say perhaps Roma could have done even better than just 1-0. Now, that's again up for debate, but I think overall we agree that the attitude, the approach, and the tactical approach from De Rossi himself, who sort of understood where the main danger comes from with Milan, it all worked out fine. Whereas now we're talking about a return leg in front of your home crowd, and you cannot lock yourself up. You cannot pray and wish for the game, the 90 minutes to go by, and so that at the end of it you're sitting there unscathed with that 1-0 advantage still in your favor. No, this has to be a match where Roma go out and they are the ones dictating the terms, because as De Rossi has said, this is Milan's last resort. They lost the Scudetto to Inter. They've never really challenged for it. Again, Stefano Pioli, the Pioli magic. Um, Europa League was and is still a big objective for Milan. So they will be desperate to score early on and try to win that game. So Roma cannot allow themselves to stroll onto the pitch, and that's something that both De Rossi and Pellegrini stressed, that you cannot have these mental lapses. You cannot also afford to have these lapses in attitude. It just doesn't work. It's not supposed to happen. So I think they were alluding to the things that we saw against Lecce, which was arguably the worst game under De Rossi, and some of the things that we saw against Udinese, which I plan to get on later on. But against Udinese, the first half, questionable, very questionable in terms of attitude. Um, so those are the things that stood out. And then obviously we have De Rossi asked again about his future, and he says that, for me, every game is like a crossroads, as in every game is decisive at this point of the season. From where he took over from Jose Mourinho, everything is up for grabs for him, right? And everything, he's being judged for everything. Every game, every loss, every draw, every win says a different story for him and for his future, which is, I think, is yet to be determined. Like from his comments, it was quite evident that nothing has been, put down in writing. Greetings from Nevada, Ambrose. Thank you so much. Thoughts on Salik seemingly being our lock at right back now? Any place for Karsdorp in the future under Daniele De Rossi? I think Karsdorp right now, and also notice how, I mean, it's been on and off, because Salik up until a month ago was nowhere to be found in Roma's lineup. With De Rossi, he barely had any playing time before the international break. So all of this happens quite recently with Salik, and that's been the case for that position of right back, which has been Roma's main weak point, along with, one could argue, Nicola Zalewski, who's been awful every time we've seen him. Thankfully, tomorrow he's not expected to start. Instead, El Shaarawy will start again. But I think Salik is the more reasonable option, because he's the more balanced one. Perhaps he doesn't take the risks that Karsdorp takes when he goes forward. But again, Karsdorp hasn't had an assist in God knows how long, so it's not really a factor. And Salik is better defensively than Karsdorp. So doesn't mean that tomorrow we will see the same kind of defensive display from Salik like the one we saw against Lazio or Milan, where he was really effective on the defensive end, along with Angelino on the other side. But I think he's the more reasonable option right now. De Rossi trusts him more than anybody else. Obviously, Erasmus Christensen is back with the squad, but he's not in Roma's UEFA list, so he's not eligible to play. So Karsdorp is the only option, and just Karsdorp right now seems like he's the guy coming off the bench. Nico from Defensive Dynamo podcast for Milan says, yes, we individually have better players, but as Roma is playing like a unit and believe it's in De Rossi. Yeah, absolutely. We are talking about two different teams, as in one is clearly gathering its strength from the collective under De Rossi. Roma are taking a lot of inspiration from the manager. He's had an immense impact since taking over, and that's been, you can always discuss the individuals. You can say, well, Roma's only quality players are Dybala and Lukaku. But their strength, the reason why they've been doing so well in recent weeks and months, it's been the collective, and the collective has been emphasized by De Rossi. Milan, on the other hand, have the opposite situation, where they are driven by the quality of individuals, which is very high. Pulisic, Leao, Theo Hernandez, even 37-year-old Olivier Giroud, Chukwueze. So you have a lot of quality there, and they've been winning in spite of Stefano Pioli. In my opinion, they've been doing that. So we have a real clash of attitudes in tomorrow's match, because Roma, on one hand, with De Rossi, they've always been proactive. So you can also say that what you can expect is for Roma to go out there and dictate the pace, dictate the tempo, play to win again, not play to hold the draw, play not to lose. So we are talking about that. We're talking about a team that, on the one hand, is proactive. On the other hand, is in a situation that could, they could change their attitude tomorrow. They could lock themselves up. They could set up a bus and try to replicate what they did against Real Sociedad last year under Jose Mourinho. But I do not think that that's going to happen. And then on the opposite side of the pitch, you have a Milan team that has the quality, that has the pace, that has the dribbling. I mean, they can hurt you always. So that's going to be interesting. A real clash of attitudes, of mentality, of personnel. Roma record under the referee, Marciniak. And for me, no way we are winning, Andy. I literally take okay, well, yeah, we have tomorrow. We have Szymon Marciniak, the famous Polish referee who's been ousted as a fascist in recent months, following his refereeing display in the World Cup what was it, last year or whatever, and it was he's got a great reputation as one of the better referees. Roma obviously faced him twice. They've lost twice. The most recent time was 8 years ago. Think about it, 8 years ago, when they were in the Champions League preliminaries, and obviously De Rossi got a red card, got sent off along with Emerson Palmieri, and Roma ended up losing that game 3-0 after going down to 9 men. It was quite pathetic, and Francesco Totti's last time in the Champions League, although he didn't play. So yes, it's not looking good, but that doesn't tell the whole story, so we can skip that part. We have to win for Eduardo. Obviously, it's in reference to that audio that has been circulating, in that Daniele De Rossi responded to of a Roma fan who's terminally ill, and his dying wish is to see Roma lift the Europa League trophy. So Roma are trying to track this fan, this Eduardo, and they want to invite him, and they want to play for him. Wish you had the full transcript on the whole Eduardo radio phone call for the international audience who don't speak Italian. I really want the team to do it for him. Okay, well, yeah, I can try. Sure, I can try and do that. I'll look for it and then post it on the website if I can find it. So thank you for the good idea. That's reasonable. In case of Lecce and Udine, I expect more from our substitutions. But when half of the team is rotated and Daniele De Rossi pulls off 3-5-2 when everyone is shit in this formation, I always know this game will be a failure. Okay, just to put it, guys, there needs to be a bit more order in these sentences, because when I read them live, it becomes quite complicated to keep track of everything. But you're basically saying that whenever there is a rotation involved, and whenever Roma have relied recently on a 3-man defense, yes, there's been that feeling of, well, what are we even doing here? We're not good at this, right? Clearly, Roma have some kind of aversion to 3-5-2. I've said it time and time before. Roma have an allergy to 3-5-2. It's clear as day right now that this team, especially with De Rossi in charge, just cannot express itself the same way when they have a three-man backline. And that was the case against Udinese. That was the case against Lecce. That was the case on so many occasions where they had to, for some reason, switch to that particular setup, and it just doesn't work. Last game, Dean Huijsen struggles mightily and makes a fatal mistake. In previous times as well, Roma lose balance. They lose the balance that makes them so dangerous under De Rossi. They almost feels like somebody is taking the air out of them. I see already a question that pisses me off. Baldanzi low key is a flop. No. The answer is no. Baldanzi has made what, three starting appearances. I would say on two occasions he was one of the better players. Against Udinese, he was definitely the best player on the pitch in a really poor first half, and then he came alive with Dybala on the pitch. He was good against Brighton, I thought. So there is no way we can talk about a player who was brought in January and was clearly signed as a long-term investment and label him a flop. I can't have that, at least not on this live stream. I'm sorry. I'm not in for the extreme opinions. Those are takes that I just don't tolerate. I hope our defenders are careful with the ball at their feet tomorrow, says Gisberto. I've seen too many sloppy giveaways in dangerous positions lately. Yeah, that's what jumped at me in the match against Udinese. I thought after coming off such a brilliant performance against Milan in the first leg, where everything was so pitch perfect, aside from some occasions where Roma could have done better with their opportunities in front of goal, they were sloppy. They were sloppy and they were slow. They were not reactive enough, which is not something that we've seen too much of under De Rossi, because for De Rossi, it's so important for the ball to move fast. That's one of the first things that De Rossi has said as Roma's coach during training. There were those videos being released by Roma's official social media team, where you could see De Rossi's instructions on the training ground was move the ball quickly, first touch, stressing the importance of that. And I think in the games with De Rossi in charge that Roma haven't fared too well, it was always a matter of the team not really knowing what to do with the ball, which hasn't been the case when you have all the 11 starters. It hasn't been the case when you have the 11 starters on the pitch. They read each other like clockwork, and you have Leandro Paredes who orchestrates everything. You have Cristante who helps out the fullbacks. You have Pellegrini reading between the lines. You have Dybala cutting in. You have Lukaku who holds up the ball perfectly, because that's one of the things that he did so well against Milan. So that's what we're talking about. We're talking about a team that, it's true, they've been alternating. They've been on and off. Whenever we see that De Rossi is trying to rest some players, we're already fearful. We already know that something will change, that something will not be the same as it was with the starters involved. And tomorrow, obviously, we have somebody like Cristante, who you may like him or may not like him, but he's one of the reasons that we won against Milan in the first leg, because he helped out immensely in the middle of the pitch and in containing Milan's movement on the flanks. Cristante can do those things too. So with Eduardo Bove, who will start in his place, that's one of the few things that De Rossi wanted to divulge about the formation for tomorrow, is that Eduardo Bove will be taking over from Cristante, who is suspended for the match. It will be interesting to see if Eduardo Bove will be used differently, or whether he can replicate that kind of performance, that kind of tenacity at this moment in time. It's badly needed from Eduardo Bove. It's badly needed to see a wake up call, because Bove, since De Rossi took over, he's one of those players that dropped off in terms of quality. We can safely say that Bove was one of the very few pleasant surprises for the first part of the season under Jose Mourinho. Clearly one of the more consistent players in a very inconsistent Roma team. And yet, since Daniele De Rossi took over, Bove has been facing limited playing time. Whenever he's been on, he hasn't looked sharp. So that's something that we need to keep an eye out for. Ciao, Andy. Need to run, and we'll listen to this later. Thank you so much. But just want to thank you for doing another live broadcast. Love hearing your takes on all things Roma film travel. Thank you so much, man. Take care. Thank you for joining. You mentioned the Udinese game earlier, Gisberto. What did you see in that game that you didn't like and don't want to see them do against Milan? I think I've already answered that in this rambling, but exactly that, exactly what we saw against Lecce, exactly what we saw against Fiorentina in the first half. Sloppy, slow. It doesn't work for this Roma. It doesn't work. It almost feels reminiscent of the worst Roma under Mourinho. It almost feels like they're fighting those instincts that were instilled in them under Mourinho. It almost feels unnatural to them. You watch the game against Udinese, the team has quite a fairly poor idea of what to do moving forward. They just don't seem like they have that same drive when they face other sides, when they have a four-man defense, when they have other starters. Because obviously when you have a midfield composed of Eduardo Bove, Houssem Aouar, and Baldanzi, you're sending a message, right? You're sending a message, but the message is not entirely clear, as in, what do we do? Do we keep the same intensity? Are we looking, because somebody like Baldanzi is much more attacking. Somebody like Houssem Aouar so far has been fairly inconsistent. You can't ask of them the same things you ask of players like Cristante or Paredes. So we have to. Those are the things that we cannot have tomorrow. We cannot have a Roma that is complacent. The worst Roma team that I've seen so far this season has always been complacent, has always looked disinterested. I don't think that's going to be the case. Again, you're playing against a Milan side that will be desperate, but you will have the backing of over 66,000 people in the stadium. So that's what we're talking about. We're talking about a side that knows exactly what this occasion means for them. They've been in this situation. They fought to keep a result. They fought to bring the win home and to advance. So thankfully, we can say that Roma are a lot of things, but inexperienced at this stage in a European competition? No. Let's see. Only in Rome is Baldanzi called a flop. Absolutely. You've invested 15 million in him in January. He's a player that was coming off a period of injuries and a lot of inconsistencies. And the plan was always long term with Baldanzi. Clearly, from the get go, Daniele De Rossi, one of the first few things that he says, we didn't sign Baldanzi for now. We signed him to be a Roma player in the future. We signed him to be the Dybala of the future. So I think that's what we have to keep in mind when we talk about Baldanzi, who up until a few months ago was playing for Empoli. Mark says, hit the like button, guys, and I have to agree with him. We have 31 people watching, but only 14 likes. So if you can, click the like button. And if you haven't subscribed to this channel, this is the Roma Press channel. This is where you get all the latest podcast episodes in video format, and where you can also watch these live streams, which I schedule usually a couple of hours in advance. So if you haven't subscribed again to this channel, please do so right now and give us a thumbs up on the video. Hopefully Milan players have the derby in the back of their minds. Well, I don't really know. The only thing they can have in the back of their minds for the derby is not to see Inter celebrate the Scudetto on that ground, and also not to get embarrassed again by Inter. But aside from that, tomorrow is what Milan want, because Milan want the Europa League. They have to show up with something for this season. They cannot have Inter running rampant in Serie A and humiliating them at San Siro just to lift the league title. It just cannot happen. So even for Pioli, who I think he's on his way out, but still there has to be something in it for him as well. He has to have something to show for his last season at Milan. Um, so I do not think that Milan will approach this game with any kind of lack of concentration, lack of intensity. No, they will be. They know what they want, and they have the quality to get it. Let's see. Baldanzi's for the future. A player Pinto got for under 20 who will be worth 50 one day. He's young. His style's better fit with Tammy than Lukaku. Hold up play. Give him time. And it's funny because we have to figure out a way to incorporate him. That's the thing, because a lot of people thought, well, he's incompatible with Dybala, but the best minutes played against Udinese for Baldanzi were when Dybala came on. And so that gives you a lot of unexplored territory to take into consideration when we talk about this 20-year-old midfielder who is, again, he's 20. So there is just so much fertile ground which we can exploit in our advantage for the years to come with him. He's a big deal. He's a big deal that right now obviously is not performing perhaps to the standard of signing for 15 million, which is quite rare for Roma in January. But still, we have to, sort of set our expectations, ground our expectations. Baldanzi, I feel, is being molded and slowly will learn from Dybala. I think that's the plan all along. Absolutely. I hope we're going to see Smalling and Mancini starting tomorrow. I don't trust Llorente and Huijsen after the minutes against Udinese. Well, I think it's unfair to put Llorente in there, because I think a lot of people forget what the kind of performance that Llorente put in the derby. So that was Udinese obviously didn't work out, but I think, again, you just too many changes there. Huijsen is not eligible to play because he's not on Roma's UEFA list. So I think by nature it will be Smalling and Mancini tomorrow. Obviously, Evan Dika is ruled out. He's being still being observed. Although today he underwent a new series of tests that once again did not reveal any kind of signs of a heart attack. Ciao, Andy. Glad to see Indica is out and doing okay, Nino. What do you hope to see in terms of Roma's approach to the game tomorrow? Well, absolutely, again, just no complacency involved, and to not try and replicate what they did against Milan in the first leg. I want them to improve upon that performance, because I think Roma could have very well been in a situation where they could have scored 2 goals instead of just 1. So to do better, because that performance was great, but it's a performance that belongs in a certain context. It belongs in the context of a team that was notorious for losing at San Siro against Milan for the past few years, and then finally they had to find a way to overturn, to turn the tables around, to make Milan understand that they're no longer that team. So it belongs to a certain context. Tomorrow, the context is completely different. You're playing at home, packed stadium. You're playing for something that you're already familiar with, which is a European semifinal. This could be Pellegrini's 5th consecutive European semifinal. So that's a pretty big deal, and the players know what is at stake. That is the most important information for me, is that they are showing me. Pellegrini in his press conference also shows me that he knows exactly what he's talking about. Atalanta knocking Liverpool out is such a blessing. 1, they kick out the number 1 favorites. 2, their league schedule is walk in the park, so let them play those extra games so we can guarantee 5th, but hopefully winning Europa League. And we saw Atalanta sort of the result against Hellas stunned me. The fact that they let Hellas score 2 goals on them after that kind of performance at Anfield was stunning, and perhaps again shows that their focus is going to shift. Obviously, you have to take into consideration we also have Bayer Leverkusen still in the Europa League. That's a team that has already won the league title, and now they're going to look for their European trophy. So I have a feeling Milan will go up 1-0 right after halftime. Then Dybala scores in the 93rd. Okay, somebody screenshot that, Cronky. Baldanzi has to gain weight. He gets bullied every time he attacks. Zaleski, I'm Polish, so I'm in position of watching him being deadwood at Roma and turning into Ronaldinho for Poland. It's weird. I'm half Polish as well, and Nikola Zaleski nie jest dobrym graczem, niestety. So he's not good. He's not good. He's not making any progress. He's not really learning anything. I think he still has that one assist, or maybe it's two now in over 80 appearances for Roma. A lot of consideration will have to be made with regards to Zaleski's future, because so far he has contributed nothing to Roma. It's unfortunate, homegrown player, boyhood club and everything, blah blah blah, but at some point in time, man, if you can't make a difference against the likes of Lecce or Udinese, and actually are one of the worst performers on the pitch, then I'm sorry, you just don't have a place in the squad. You're taking up space. I've really liked Baldanzi so far. Let's see. According to reports, Chukwueze isn't starting on Thursday, so it looks like we're going with the same starting 11. Well, in that case, Stefano Pioli will do his magic, Nico. I don't know what to tell you. The man baffles me. He has baffled me ever since his Chievo Verona days, his Lazio days, his Inter days. Not a good manager. That's my opinion. Do you think Daniele De Rossi will go back to three-man defense again anytime Roma do a three-man backline? It's terrible. But that's why I'm wondering what the decision will be, given that Chris Smalling could start tomorrow. So that's the thing. Or will he stick with Diego Llorente and Gianluca Mancini and therefore stick to a four-man backline? It's a very easy consideration to be made, because that's the only thing that really makes the difference, is does Smalling start or not? Because Smalling has shown that he's the only player that can sustain a three-man backline. God, why are there still Mourinho sexuals here? Can't get over it. Daniele De Rossi's crushing it. Pellegrini, blah 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 blah. Yes, we have a lot of people still hung up on yeah. What do we have? What do we have? What do we have? Okay. Let me just do this. Okay. Okay. I had to. Yes, I had to. I'm sorry, guys. Had to intervene in the chat, because I always say, if the chat is nice, but we have to make life easier for us. So if you're just coming in here to break balls, then there is no place for you. I'm sorry. Rete Sport had mentioned a possible 4-4-2 with Spinazzola and Angelino. Do you see that in the last 30 minutes or so, if the game is tied or Dybala gets too tired and time is up front? That could be it. I think that's definitely a more offensive option. I think Salik will still get the start. I don't expect too many changes tomorrow. Just with Bove, already that in of itself is a big change, in my opinion. To not have Cristante for this kind of match, big change, and big chance for Bove to show De Rossi what he's made of, because so far he hasn't done enough. Let's see. Zaleski offers nothing at the moment. He's a skeleton of himself 2 years ago. Yes, he's been useless, absolutely useless. I don't remember. Does anybody remember a remarkable performance by Nicola Zaleski? Like a truly remarkable performance where you can go and say, clearly among the top three players in that game. It hasn't happened in ages. And it's not even that I'm hung up on him. It's just that if there is one thing that irritates me a lot, is when players are given chance after chance after chance, and in different positions. Because right now Zaleski is being asked different things from De Rossi as opposed to Mourinho. His agent went on and on about how fantastic it's going to be with De Rossi in charge. He's going to put him in a more offensive position. He's going to give him more freedom, blah blah blah. Still, he's been useless. So what are we talking about here? Zaleski's last good performance was probably against Leicester. Still, that's the one performance that everybody remembers him for. What have you thought of Spinazzola lately? He's been managed very well. De Rossi, one of the crucial things that he's learned to do is rotate Angelino and Spinazzola, and that has given Roma tremendous uh, output on that left flank. I thought that's a brilliant decision to give Angelino a chance in the league, Spinazzola in the cup, rotate them. Perfect. Spinazzola doesn't get too tired, doesn't get too injured. Angelino delivers. I thought I really like it. I really like. I think that's a very wise decision not to give somebody like Spinazzola, who's a player who loves to get complacent. Don't give him that complacency. Don't give him that opportunity. I disagree about Zalewski. Jose killed a lot of players at Roma. Zalewski needs to get himself together, and let's give him time to do so. Marco, how much time? That's the question. How much time? Um, yes, Jose could have ruined him. On one hand, I agree because Zalewski was a completely different player in the Primavera, and he was brought in as an emergency addition to the squad when Matias Vigna got injured, and obviously Leonardo Spinazzola was out with an Achilles injury. But at the same time, it's been a long, long time, and he's not a kid anymore. He has to give something, and right now Zalewski's not even doing the basics right. That's the point. Is I have the same issue with Zalewski as I did with Zaniolo. What bothered me about Zaniolo was doing too much, and he couldn't even do the basics right. I wasn't expecting him to go back to his pre-ACL form. I was expecting him to do the simple things correctly. And yet, that was not the case. He still couldn't deliver. And to me, that's when a player becomes really irritating and useless. Those are considerations that you as a club have to make, because Zalewski is not paid badly. Zalewski makes a lot of money. And what's his contribution? 2 assists in 80 plus games for Roma. I'd send Zalewski on loan to one of the teams coming up from Serie B, so he can't play more at his best position. I think Zalewski makes way too much money for that kind of context. That's a problem. Yeah, that's you have to also the player. I don't think he'd be willing. It's just going to be quite a difficult situation to handle. But anyway, let's move on from Zalewski. Gisberto, I have to praise Lukaku for his play lately. He's been great at holding up the ball and setting up the offense. Nice to see Tammy back, but you can still see he's very rusty. Absolutely, Tammy is very rusty. Lukaku has been a pleasant surprise. Because he's been very involved, I think, with the exception of Udinese, where he scores the goal, but he was a bit sleepy there and a bit tired, clearly, from the workload that he put on his shoulders against Lazio, against the Milan. Those were two really big games for Lukaku. He's looked way more involved. Even Daniele De Rossi acknowledged that he's been excellent so far with these last two big performances, probably the best ones since De Rossi took over. Zalewski has this Florenzi syndrome where his position was being changed every other match, so he hasn't developed properly. Absolutely, he's the worst thing that can happen to you at Roma is become a jolly. That's what Zalewski has become. Is the curse of being supposedly better than Dani Alves, quoting the great Walter Sabatini. So okay, I think I see that Zalewski has sparked a huge conversation in the chat. Zalewski's best chance is to study how Spinazzola plays, and maybe he can be 70% of a player Spinazzola is during his prime. Yeah, well, I don't know. I think both of them are so different from each other. And also Spinazzola right now is not the best example, although he's been very good. Even the media have begun speculating whether it's possible to renew his contract. I do not think that's an option. I do not think that Roma are taking into consideration the possibility of renewing Leonardo Spinazzola's contract. I think he's still walking away as a free agent at the end of the season. So we have the Milan match out of the way for this live stream. I think we have a concrete idea of what the stakes are. This is going to be difficult. This is going to be challenging, but this is a huge opportunity for Roma to reaffirm their status and their form in Europe. This is by no means a match resembling the first leg in Milan at San Siro. This is different. The context is different, and the performance required to win will be different. My only worry for the Milan game is Bove. He's been the worst player under De Rossi, unlike with that's the main question for this match. You're going to have one major change to the starting lineup, which will be no Cristante. Bove will be taking over. Let's see how Bove does. It's a big test for him. Obviously, no Evandika. Evandika was suspended for the first leg against Milan in San Siro. He was supposed to play this match. Obviously, he's not going to. Evandika is doing fine. He's being looked after by Roma's medical staff. He underwent more tests today. Again, it's been ruled out that what happened on Sunday was a heart attack. What Roma have officially released in their medical report is that Erandika sustained a very strong blow to the chest, caused some trauma inside. It caused chest pains. It potentially damaged his lungs. So it will take time. We are potentially looking at say 4 weeks out of action. Those are the recent reports that have come out. It's going to take time because this is a serious issue, regardless if it's a heart attack or not. In this case, whenever there is something related to the chest and to pain in the chest, it's dangerous and you have to look after it. I think the situation against Udinese was surreal, was very scary. It's not going to be treated lightly by Roma, by De Rossi. There is no hurry, there is no rush, because these things are bigger than any kind of competition, any kind of objectives, anything. So we're looking at Evan Dika potentially being out for a month, and in his place, hopefully Chris Smalling can go back to being the Chris Smalling that we knew from last season, the consistent, strong, physical leader in the defense. So I will try and get the transcript for the Roma fan that is terminally ill, Eduardo, and who sent a message to Roma asking them to win the Europa League as his dying wish, and Roma want to find him, want to track him down, and to offer him the possibility to come and also to fight for him, especially. So I think we will finish here this live stream. I wanted to thank everybody for joining me today from wherever you are in the world. I know we have people tuning in from West Coast, East Coast, from Southeast Asia. We got people in Australia. We got people in London. We got people in Nevada and New Mexico. So wherever you're in the world, thank you so much for always supporting Roma Press. If you haven't subscribed to this channel, please do so. This is where you can find all the Roma Press podcast episodes in video format. This is where you can also find these live streams, which I occasionally record once a week. And if you would like to support us, you can always do so by going to patreon.com/Roma Press. You can select any plan you like. You can chip in $1, and that's going to be a great help to us. In the meantime, guys, as always, fingers crossed that Roma get the job done tomorrow. A lot at stake, but I think we are dealing with a Roma team that is well aware of what this game means in the grand scheme of things. So once again, guys, thank you so much. Have a nice rest of the day. Until next time, Forza Roma.